Hello, my name's Katherine Wren and I'm the founder of Nordic Viola. Nordic Viola is a flexible ensemble of musicians with the viola at its heart who are exploring the music and the cultural connections between Scotland and the wider North Atlantic region, the Northern Isles of Scotland, the Faroe Islands, Iceland and Greenland. Over the last 18 months or so, I've been working on a project called On a Wing and a Prayer. We've been exploring how our habitats are changing with the increasing threat of climate change. Over the course of the project, we've been creating new music inspired by the habitats that we've visited, but it's not just been about our own reflections and impressions. We've also taken a lot of time to speak to the residents and local experts too, drawing together their stories and their experiences of what's going on in their areas. During our concerts, we've tried to ask audiences to reflect on how the music's affected them and the things that they've experienced. We've then shared them and used them as a prompt for people to think of their own thoughts as they go out into nature and experience what's around them. So today I'd like to focus on the second iteration of On a Wing and a Prayer, which took place in Deeside, which is a mountainous area around the River Dee and its tributaries in the Cairngorm Mountains, not so far from Aberdeen. And I'd like to introduce you to some of the creators that I work with, composer Pete and Joe Stollery and artist Orla Stevens.
Hi, my name is Pete Stollery. I'm a composer and a sound artist. And on the On a Wing and a Prayer project of Deeside, I was one of the composers. It was a great pleasure for me to work with my son, Joe Stollery, who's a composer. He's autistic. And one of the things that was a real pleasure and also something that was really good personally for Joe was to work on this collaborative project together. I worked providing the electronics and the 8-channel immersive spatialization for the piece. Joe worked with Katherine on a lot of the acoustic material for Viola. But one of the important things for Joe was to be able to work with me as his father, but also as another composer, but also with Katherine in what was a very safe environment for him. So I asked Joe a few questions about how he felt the project went for him on a collaborative basis as a composer and as an autistic composer.
It's been amazing. First of all, it was a great opportunity to go into a place I've never been to before, like in the depths of winter as well. I mean, I wouldn't normally do this. It did come at quite a spectacular time.
Yeah, it started snowing when we first got there, didn't it? And then it kind of got really quite heavy. But how did the weather and the temperature and where you were and being surrounded by nature and so on, how did that make you feel about the project?
Yeah, well, it certainly provided a very nice canvas for us all to work upon, pretty much. I mean, it was all calm and still, and you could hear the vague sort of hint of like a bird here and there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was all just like sort of silent snow falling. And
an interesting thing for me was how the snow made the sound very different when we were there.
Well, certainly, I mean, you can probably see it in some of the improvisational bits, some of the quite still bits. I mean, there's a sense of sort of icy calm.
Yeah. As the snow was falling, the sound was getting more and more deadened. We kind of walked towards Glencoich, didn't it? Then there's that bit when Katherine got her viola out and started to improvise under the bridge, which I think was quite something as well. Yeah. There's a bit when we worked in the art gallery in Braemar. I'd written an electroacoustic response to our first visit. And then I played that to Katherine and she started to improvise. And this is what turned into eventually the new bridge, Frozen Solitude, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your contribution at that point was really quite something. It sort of came one thing after another. My response to the cold and the icy stillness that you described, and then Katherine responding to my sounds and improvising.
Yeah.
And then what was your bit that you did then?
Yeah, I did the improvisation in D after that. Katherine just wanted me to do it, focused on like the pitch of D. And then
Yeah,
Katherine made her own response to that.
that's right. And then what we did in the show itself was to have recorded Katherine coming out of the loudspeakers playing your improvisation at the same
Yeah.
time as she was playing her response to the sounds, which was really quite a special moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
And then the other bit that was really quite special as far as the ecosystem around Glencoich was something that you'd said about, you know, imagining after Storm Frank and the river as it goes out into the look like a delta, if you like. But you kind of thought about the birds at that point, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What did you then do with the music at that point?
Yeah. We got a list of like sort of the waterfowl who that sort of were located around the river, and listened to all the different bird songs of all those birds, and I ended up doing almost like what Messiaen would have done. You got
Yeah.
snipe, you got oyster catchers.
Yeah. So you notated those birds and
Yeah.
then got Katherine to play them. Yeah. And that was that
Yeah.
really effective, very, very quiet moment, I think, with
Yeah.
just Katherine playing.
Really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, as a composer and a sound artist, something that's very important to me, in fact, something that permeates all of my work, is the aspect of the importance of listening. Whether I'm writing music for the concert hall, for sound installations, for internet-based creative projects, my work is designed so that the audience is required to listen, and those who are involved, those participating, are asked to listen, because something that's very important to me is the act of listening, because I think it's something that we have forgotten how to do. We become very governed by our eyes, if you like, so I'm to an extent trying to redress the balance a little, and get us to be as comfortable working with sound as we are, say, for example, taking a photograph with a mobile device. I'd really like a world where people are taking recordings with their mobile devices as well. So I do a lot of work with communities. I spend a lot of time creating sound maps, for example. And with this project, we had the workshop where we were asking people to listen to sounds around them, as well as to draw sounds, as Orla will talk to you soon about. But this community aspect is really important, to try and get people in the moment to try and listen to the environments that they're inhabiting. So what we did as part of the workshop was to record sounds with a view to them then being placed on a sound map afterwards, so that the project itself has legacy, but also, and more importantly, I think that the participants in the project had a location to go back to, albeit a location on the internet via a Google Earth map, to be able to go back and revisit those sounds and the places that they went to. So on a map, which is not a real place, but on a map you can place these recordings so people can reimagine themselves being in those places again. Of course, the recording isn't the real sound either, but it's as near to it as we can get. So this aspect is very important in my work, and I think it permeates the work that we did with this project really well.
My name is Orla Stevens. I'm an artist and an illustrator, and I've been collaborating with Katherine and Pete to use art and art workshops as a way to connect with our local communities, and in turn connect our local communities in with the wider project. As an artist, my work explores themes of landscape, of nature connection, and in turn how these places make us feel. Our workshops in both Blaine and in Stirling focused on sharing easy, fun and practical ways to connect with our local landscapes. Our workshops are founded on the belief that if we are aware of something, if we notice it more and more, we are ultimately more likely to care and therefore protect our local environments. In our art workshops, we were looking to explore the question, if sound could be a visual, what would it look like? We were using art, specifically mark making, as a fun and accessible way to capture the world around us. We answered questions like, if sound could be a colour, what colour would it be? If sound could be a texture, what texture would it be? Through our drawings, we were also exploring the connections between visual art, between sound, and between music too. There are so many similarities, from rhythm to tone, colour, texture, line, and through our drawings we were exploring and discussing these as we went. Our workshops took us outdoors into our local landscapes to listen, to tune in and to notice. We gathered sound field recordings and drew at the same time. Back indoors, we were able to work collaboratively, working large scale on pieces together at the same time. We drew in response to the sounds that we had gathered earlier in the day, and as we drew, we were able to hold and make space for conversations around what these sounds meant to us, any personal memories attached to these sounds and to what we'd experienced. By the end of the day, our communities left us sketchbooks and phones full of sound recordings in hand, with new, playful and accessible ways to sit for just a minute, tune into the world around us, and we hope leave with a deeper sense of appreciation for the beauty of it all.
So as you can see from what Orla said, On a Wing and a Prayer is about so much more than just the music that we created for this project. I think what's really special about the project is its holistic approach. We've tried to engage with people who know the areas well, but more than that, we've tried to tread as lightly as we can during the project. I've thought very carefully about how I've travelled where I possibly can. I've used the train and the bike. And we've really tried to limit car use, only really using it when we've needed to transport gear and minimising those journeys. I've also tried to think carefully about the accommodation that I've chosen during projects. It's been low impact, either staying on campsites, in pods and in tents, or staying with small local providers who are very careful about how they operate in those communities. We've tried to share our creative process as we've gone along. We've presented a podcast for each iteration of On a Wing and a Prayer, where we've talked about who we've worked with and how we've worked with them, and also reflected on our artistic process, how we've gone about collecting the sounds and drawing the whole thing together to make these new pieces. We're trying now to extend the conversation more widely, using artists such as Orla, allowing those communities to respond to what people in the Highlands and Islands have said, and to reflect on whether these issues are also impacting on their own local areas. These instances of flooding, as we saw in Deeside, and bird flu on the cliffs in Shetland, and also restoring woodland habitats are not unique to these Scottish remote areas. They're habitats that you see throughout the UK and also further afield in the North Atlantic. And by connecting people to them, we hope that we can encourage them to care for them and to think deeply about their own behaviour and how it impacts on the places. Earlier this year, we released the first of our audio recordings, On a Wing and a Prayer, Reflections on Deeside's Changing Habitats, with music by Pete and Joe Stollery and myself, and also by Charles Ross from Iceland and Paul Anderson from Deeside. We're planning on releasing all the music that's been created during the 3 iterations of On a Wing and a Prayer, and also adding to this body of material by including writings by myself and poet Leslie Harrison, illustrations by Orla Stevens, and suggestions for activities that you can try out in your own local community, gathering sound, and also responding by mark making to what you see and hear around you. We want to inspire people to tune in more to their local environment and perhaps to create some of their own work that helps them to connect and to think more deeply about how our lives actually impact on the environments in which we live. We don't want to just limit this conversation to Scotland either. We would love to work in communities elsewhere and to bring some of the issues that we've found in Scotland and in the North Atlantic to other communities and see how they connect into issues being experienced there. If you'd like to listen more deeply to our music, you can find it on Bandcamp. We'd also love you to extend the conversation with us by contacting us via nordicviola.com. And we'd very much love to work in communities with you. So please do contact us and share your ideas with us. And we hope to see some of you on projects in the future.